Welcome to the Kick Sugar Coach podcast. Join me each week as I interview experts who will share the science of sugar, sugar addiction, and different approaches to recovery. We hope to empower you with the information and inspiration, insights, and strategies you need to break up with sugar and fall in love with healthy whole foods so you can prevent and reverse chronic disease, lose weight, boost your mood and energy. Feel free to go to my website for details on my coaching programs and to access free resources, kicksugarcoach.com. Hello, everybody, and welcome to a special Sugar Success Stories interview. I have with me today Kim Kierkegaard. And Kim is American, but has been living in Canada since almost 30 years, since the late 1980s. And she had a career as a nurse, and then she transitioned that into a long-standing career, multi-decade career in IT. And at her highest weight, believe it or not, this woman that we're looking at today at just over 200 pounds, used to be 400 pounds at her highest weight, but actually could have been higher because she said that's as high as my scale went. So who knows what the real number was, but it was at least 400 pounds. And her story of recovery is just absolutely inspirational. So I'm so grateful to have you here today. Here's one other thing I wanted to mention about Kim. She's the mother of a son, and she is, true story, the grandniece, the 7 times down the line grandniece of the philosopher Kierkegaard, for those of you who geek out on philosophy, which I used to do in university. So this is pretty exciting. This is pretty exciting for me. Welcome, Kim.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, gosh, I'm not even sure where to start with this, but maybe do you want to start with how did you get to become 400 pounds, Kim?
400 pounds, it's a lot of accumulation of eating my feelings, not knowing how to deal with feelings, emotions, trauma, and just stuffing everything down, don't want to deal with it. So eat this and, that'll make me feel better. And, it doesn't. So you eat a little bit more because, you get that little dopamine hit and the sugar high. And so you eat a little bit more and then you eat a little bit more and not going out, not moving, having a very, very dull life. I didn't do anything. I looked after my son as a single parent, and I worked. I came home and really ate, sat in front of the TV and played with my son, and didn't do too much. And so, of course, that just kind of accumulate little by little. You start gaining weight, and before you know it, I am over 400 pounds. So it was a long ways to get to that point. But I'm now here, and it was a lot of work, and I realized that I had to put the effort in. It took me a while to get to 400 pounds, so it's going to take me a while to get rid of the 400 pounds, and a lot of hard work. And yes, that included a lot of dealing with my brain and the whys of why I did what I did.
Right. And how long did it get you to get up to 400 pounds? Were you overweight as a child?
As a child, not really. It was more once I kind of hit my teens. As a child, my father was in the hotel business. So we moved a lot to different hotels that he needed to deal with and help. So I ended up moving to 6 different elementary schools in 2 different countries and 3 different high schools in 2 different countries. So back and forth between the US and Canada, and making it very difficult for me to actually ground myself, connect with people, and establish friendships because we were always moving. So as I became a teenager, I gave up trying to make friends. I gave up trying to get involved with groups because why? We were just going to move again. So that sort of was the building block for me becoming a recluse adult and not dealing with feelings and emotions.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And so as a teenager, you started to gain weight. And then how old were you when you hit the 400 pound mark?
I was around my early 40s.
Okay. So it took you 20 plus years to just slowly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Amazing.
Yeah.
So let me
I
do
mean,
the
I
math.
would lose a little bit and then I would gain it. And then, you try the diet fad, and I've tried many different diets and none of them stuck because I only dealt with the body. I didn't deal with the mind as to why I was doing it.
Right, right, right. All right. So you hit 400 pounds in your early 40s. And what was the turning point? Like, at what point did you decide, I got to do something about this?
Well, I reacquainted myself with a friend that I had known for 36 years, and we lost touch for a few years in between. And I reacquainted myself with this friend and realized, going back and forth to where he lived and where I am, I wanted to do things. Like, we would go out and do different tours or go to a zoo or wanted to travel. And I couldn't keep the pace right. Couldn't go for hikes, couldn't go for walks. My knees were really, really bad. Just, carrying that kind of weight around for 400 or for 20 years. My knees are just kaputs. So, I wanted to do this traveling and I wanted to go and see him more, but in order for him, I couldn't fit on a plane.
Wow.
And that embarrassment of not being able to fit on a plane properly or having to, ask for the seatbelt extender, it kind of drove me deeper into my recluse because I couldn't participate in life because I didn't fit into life anymore. And it took a lot of talking and a lot of guts for me to agree to go to on a trip to Denmark with my mother and my friend to see, because that's originally where my family is from. It's Denmark. And going over there, it was difficult, but I loved it because I was able to experience a different culture. And this different culture didn't treat me like I was an outcast. I was embraced, and my family just, was so happy to see me over there. And so coming back, I'm like, I got to change. I got to do something because I can't keep doing this. I was pre-diabetic. I was having thyroid issues, high blood pressure. And of course, my knees were not very good. So I started exploring different options, found keto, and got very serious about keto, did investigating and figured out the best way to do it, and just went in and did keto and stayed very strict about it. And I did lose 80 pounds on my own. And then I lost my father and I got stuck for 5 years. Didn't move. I didn't go back up again, but I didn't lose any more either. So I found that looking at what I was doing, I was still eating my feelings. It was keto food, it was healthy food, but I was still eating my feelings and pushing them down. So that overeating part wasn't being dealt with. And I would also make a lot of the keto desserts, and again, overeat them. So at that point, what changed was the job that I was working at for the last 20 years. I had this amazing manager come in and we became very good friends. And he saw something in me that I didn't at that time. And he mentored me and pulled me out of my little prison in my little corner and showed me a compassion that I hadn't been shown for a very, very long time. And after a year, he said, you know what, you do this job better than I do. So I'm going to step aside and I'm going to give you this job. You do the job. You become manager. And he did. And that just completely excited me, woke me up. And then several months later, he introduced me to Jane Steele Food Addiction. And I did a session with Jane and realized I have an addiction and I overeat. And so I signed up with Jane and worked with her for several months, one-on-one every week, to deal with the why do I do this? And after 9 months of doing that with Jane, I realized I was a very different person now. And the same friend introduced me to a gym. And he's like, you need to get in the gym. So I got into the gym, and I have a trainer twice a week, and committed to a year with that. And that helped me get from 400 to 216. So I'm still working on slowly getting my way down, but I'm healthier. I'm not pre-diabetic at all anymore. My blood pressure is very normal. My thyroid issues are completely gone. I still have my knee issues, but that's kind of a replacement solution for that one. So
Incredible. And over the years, did you have like lots of people try and help you, like your mom or your family members? And was there pressure on you to try and lose weight?
Yeah, all the time. I felt so inadequate, and I felt like such a failure as a daughter because, and an embarrassment. So I hated my picture being taken. I wouldn't talk publicly. I wouldn't open my mouth. I had no voice. My voice was stolen from me.
Wow.
And I have now since found my voice. I have boundaries. But yeah, I tried, every diet that, under the sun that was out there. My mother would bring these articles, here, try this one, or, look at me odd if I took more food on my plate than she thought I should, or, so I stopped seeing people. I stopped going out for dinner with people or out with food, because food became something I had to keep secret.
Yes. Yes. And does obesity run in your families? Like when you look at your family tree, are there other food addicts and people with weight issues?
My dad had, he had a belly on him. He loved food. And it was more toward the end when he was kind of stopped his physical, like he used to do a lot of physical stuff. And once he stopped doing that, then he started gaining the weight because he ate a lot of carbs and a lot of sugar.
Might have been on the addiction spectrum too.
He might have been, yeah. And I mean, my mother, she will also say at some point, she goes, if it's in the house, then I'll eat it. So, like she'll keep chocolate in the house, but she doesn't open it because then she'll eat it.
Okay.
And she won't be able to say no. So yeah, there's probably a little bit of addiction, but she's a very small, tiny woman.
Okay.
So, and my sister, she doesn't have any issues.
No issues. Okay. So a bit of an analogy. And what about alcoholism? Like, do you see that around you at all?
Nope. None of neither of my parents, they were casual drinkers, but they didn't
No
drink.
uncles, aunts, grandparents, nothing really. So this is really quite unusual for your family then. It might have been a bit of a shock for everybody that there's this one member of the extended family that is, dealing with this morbid obesity issue. So you started to walk the path of recovery. Somehow you realized this isn't about a diet. I need deeper recovery work. I need to understand, why am I doing this? Why is this maladaptive coping strategy in place? And then you needed to sort of approach this as an addiction. So tell us about what those two pieces look like for you.
Well, when I took her Jane's quiz, to see, if I'm on the addiction spectrum, I was shocked, of course, to find out, I am on this addiction spectrum. And I was using a lot of different things, shopping and gambling and, drinking. I would all of this to numb these feelings. But the underlying issue was the food. Because when I take everything else away, I still had the food issue. And I decided, because at that point I had a taste of life and I wanted more. So I was at that point where, you know what, if I don't do something now, I knew inside that I wasn't going to be around for much longer, that my body wasn't going to be able to take me any further. So I felt like I had hit my rock bottom. And when Jane said, I have a solution for you, here's a meal plan. I'm going to work with you to find out why you're doing this. And I'm going to walk, with you through this. And I said, okay, sign me up. And I completely surrendered to the process and trusted that Jane knew what was right and how to get me started. Because my head was very foggy. I wasn't thinking very clearly. I was depressed. And again, it's the sugar, the carbs, all of that stuff was messing with my brain. So I just jumped in both feet and took a leap of faith, and boom. I have not wavered off of it. I've been abstinent for 650 days now. And I don't ever regret any decision, and I have not looked back.
Wow, incredible. And I think some of those years that you were doing keto kind of set you up to be able to step in this time and go, no, never again. No sugars, no, and I'm assuming no added sugars, no artificial chemicals or sugars, artificial. Yeah, all that's gone, right?
Yeah, I eat very clean. I eat very naturally. I started off eating some veggies and some meat, and then we decided, because I was having inflammation issues with my knee, that we were going to pull away from the vegetables. So she pulled me off vegetables, and I just stayed carnivore for the next 10 months. And now I'm sort of slowly kind of introducing veggies back in again. I don't have them every meal. It may be 4 or 5 meals a week where I'll have veggies. For the most part, I have just healthy fats and meat. I eat twice a day, and I am very content. I'm very full and satisfied, and I don't miss any of it. Right? I really don't. Food is fuel. I enjoy the meals I have, but it is just that. It is just fuel for my body so that I can live a life.
Right. And that's just so unusual after decades of it being so much more than that. And it certainly is a credit to the fact that you're on a meal plan that doesn't trigger cravings, right? If you don't have cravings, you don't eat, you just don't eat it. If you don't want to eat it, you don't eat it, right? And that's the goal. What was the hardest part? And let's say the first 6 months of really getting abstinent, and no matter what, you don't use food compulsively, you're not overeating, you're not binge eating, you're not suppressing emotions with food. So what was that like?
It was hard. It was really, really, really hard. Even though I had done the keto before, doing it this time, it was different. And it was hard, like having to come off of tea and the caffeine and getting off of that at the same time as no sugar and no carbs. My roommate is a chef, and he cooks everything, right? So it was always around me, and I knew I had to set myself up for success. So I had a long, straight talk with my roommates, like, look, this is what I'm doing. I just need you to not be, showing me food around the first 30 days. Let me get into this and solid. And I'll eat myself on my own, and then we'll see where we get to at that point. And now he can eat and cook whatever, and it doesn't bother me, because I know I'm solid with my food. This is what I eat. I weigh and measure my food, stick it in the fridge, I prep it, and there's no question in my head. No, this is my food. That's all there is.
And is all your meals more or less made in advance now?
Yeah. So I'll take one day over the weekend, and then I do my shopping, and then the next day I'll prep a bunch of meals, and it's all sitting in the fridge ready to go, and I don't have to worry about it.
Wow.
It makes life so simple when you don't have to spend a lot of time.
Have you had a really serious, like in the last 600 and some odd days, have you had a serious moment where you came close to relapsing or slipping, and what was that like?
Yep, lots of times I've come close. And I will usually get on the phone with my sponsor, or I'll call Jane. I'm like, Jane, I'm at this point. It's like the food's right in front of me. Help. Or I'll reach out to, I have a beautiful community of people that, I can reach out to. And by the time I talk it out, I've learned that I have to talk what it is that I'm feeling. If I've had a hard day, talk it out with somebody. And then once I've talked it out, it's gone. I don't have to force food down to make that feeling go away. I can talk about it, acknowledge it. Yep, I feel you. I know you're there. But you know what? Right now, I'm good, and I'm going to release you. And I release that feeling and emotion and move on.
How many would you say you've had over 600 days where you had to pick up that phone, you were hanging by a thread and you just barely got through?
The first little bit was probably weekly, if not every other day. And then as it's kind of progressed now, and I got past the first year, it's maybe once a month.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, amazing. It occurs to me that what I really should just say to you, instead of asking you questions, is just say to you, Kim, just tell us your story, and I can just drift off into the back and just let you just tell your story. So add in anything you haven't touched on, and I'm just going to give you free rein to just take this away.
So yeah, I've talked a little bit about, the fact that I had all this back and forth with schooling, which really set me up for not learning how to deal with rejection, not learning how to deal with my emotions, and feeling abandoned and disappointed that I can never, get what my sister was getting. My sister, she was fine. She had, was able to go to school, in the same school for elementary, the same school for junior high, and the same school, for high school. So she made great connections and great friends, and was involved in sports and clubs. And for me, it was a very different experience. And I remember as a teenager, I'd get my allowance, and what do? I go and spend it at the dollar store or the little corner store, and buying all the little penny candies, right? And taking them home, and it's like, okay, I have these for a week. Yeah, right. They would never last more than 2 days. They'd be gone. Once I got my driver's license and I was able to drive, then I, started exploring all the fast food restaurants. And I also found that the friends that I had realized that I had a car. So it's like, oh, well, we'll call Kim when we need a ride. But when they didn't need a ride, I wasn't called. So I learned very quickly that there was always conditions to friendships. And, I knew I couldn't rely on people. And I had to, sort of cope on my own. And I didn't learn how to talk or tell what I needed to anybody. And so I forced all of that down with food. And it wasn't until recently that I learned how to vocalize what I needed. I had, of course, some traumas in my life, and dealing with those traumas, and some legal issues that I also had. I did lose custody of my son for a little bit, and my parents were raising him, and working through all of that struggle pushed me behind a little bit, as far as my growth as an adult. I would say lost as a teenager and an adult, very depressed. I didn't really have a lot to live for. My son was it. And, I got custody of him back again, and I was like, okay, I got to change. And so went to school, and back to school again, and did some IT education, and went into that and got a job that I have had for 20 years, and worked my way from dispatcher to manager of on-site services for 5 departments. loved the people I worked with. But I also found that as my work with Jane grew and I started figuring out who I was as a person, I was not, just a mother. I was not just a victim. I was not just somebody who had trauma. I was not somebody who had PTSD. I'm Kim, and I'm a person, and I have feelings and I have needs. And I was learning who I am and how to express those needs and those desires. I even started dreaming once I started, working through this with Jane. And I started writing bucket list items down that I want to do when I, lose weight. And then one day I woke up and I'm like, why am I waiting till I lose weight to start these things? And that was where something clicked in my brain. And I picked up, a guitar, and I started learning how to play the guitar. And I started planning trips, and I went online and I looked for archery lessons, and I started taking archery lessons. I now have my own bow, and I love going out and doing, archery and playing the guitar. I picked up paintbrush and started painting, and doing all sorts of different crafts and getting that creative side out. Started writing and realized, I have to let this creative side out. My inner child was just screaming to be creative. And I now had the know-how to do that, to let that inner child out and go, it's okay, I hear you, I acknowledge you, I'm gonna just do something fun. And one of the things that I realized I didn't know how to do is I didn't know how to play. And I've learned how to play and to enjoy life for that moment, to be present and to live my life as if it was my last moment, to really enjoy everything there is, to stop and smell the rose, to stop and smell the magnolia blossom, to look at the beautiful stars as I'm walking, and realize, wow, this world is amazing. And there's so much beauty in it. And I've just not seen it for so long. Colors are so much brighter now. One of the big key things for me changing that is my thinking. I was a very negative, sarcastic person growing up because I didn't have anything happy in my life. And I flipped that around to a very positive thinking. So if I find myself going down a negative path, I go, nope, nope. Turn that around, change your perspective, make it a positive. And, now I don't even have to think about it anymore. It's just, I think as a positive, it's like, well, there must be a reason this is happening. Okay, I'm just going to sit back and wait to see what it is. And if I'm stuck in traffic, well, hey, then I get to listen to the podcast a little longer, or I get to listen to the book I'm listening to a little bit longer, or I get to listen to more music. I'll eventually get to where I need to go, and I'm not going to stress over something I cannot control. And that changed, how my brain looked at life, because you can't see the beauty in life. I couldn't see the beauty in life when I was thinking negative. But once I started thinking positive, I could see the colors, I could see the beauty in the flowers and the animals and the colors and the plants and all that life has to offer. I want to learn and I want to do as much as I can. I say yes to everything somebody suggests that I try. If I have never tried it before, the answer is always yes, I will try it. And, I just came back from Florida visiting my son down there, and we went to Busch Gardens, and I went on my first roller coaster in 30 years. And oh my gosh, was that ever exciting, and it's like I could fit in the roller coaster. I had no issues on the plane, and it was such an experience to go and feel that kind of excitement, and almost in a sense feel like a normal person, without any issues. I didn't have any issues. I could walk all over the place, and went fishing in the Gulf of Mexico and caught shark. And the trip before that, I was down there and went on one of the airboats and came back and actually held a 6-year-old alligator. And it was amazing just to go and do this stuff and experience life. And, I get such a rush from it. And, if the food just takes a back plate to everything. I don't go anywhere thinking about what am I going to eat? When am I going to have my next meal? Am I going to eat in front of people? I don't have any of that anymore. I'm able to plan my meals ahead of time. If I'm going somewhere where I know I can't eat the food because there might be sugar in it, I take my food with me. And I don't have an issue with that, and I don't stress over it, and the people around me don't stress over it because I'm not stressing over it. It's like, nope, this is my food and I'm fine. And they're, oh, okay. And everybody just carries on with their life. They don't care that I'm eating something different because I'm not making a big deal of it. And my family all knows that I'm eating no sugar, no carbs. And they've been very accepting and very helpful with how, what can I buy, so that you have food here in the house. And it's been fantastic feeling supported and loved in this journey.
Incredible. What does your son think? He got his mother back, didn't he?
He did. And the first time I didn't post any pictures of myself when I started with Jane. So people knew I was working with Jane, but they didn't know how it was really affecting my body. And after 2 years of COVID, I finally went down and saw my sister and my son, who are down in Florida. I got off the plane and they're like, oh my gosh, look at you. And it's like, I can put my arms all the way around you. They were so excited. And it was just, my nephews all ran up to me and they're like, oh, my arms go all the way around you now. And
wow.
Having that look on their face, it was just pure. I was just so excited,
Oh my gosh.
I couldn't express how happy I was just to see the expressions on their faces when they saw me the first time.
Oh, that would have been like the most amazing video clip, right? Son sees mother after 2 years. She's dropped from 400 down to 200 plus pounds. Like, it must have been incredible. He must have just been like in shock.
Yeah, I was.
He really had no idea. Like, it was a real surprise.
Well, he knew I was losing weight, but I kind of, to actually visualize, what I looked like before. I mean, he was seeing my face and when I did FaceTime stuff.
Sure.
But to actually see the whole body.
Yeah.
And to see that I can walk, and go for walks with him and his dog and just participate in life and want to do things. It was so different. They're not used to that. And, it's like, oh, should we take the elevator? Oh, no, we can walk upstairs. So, like, oh, okay.
So whole new lease on life. It's just such an incredible testament to how resilient our bodies are. You were 400 pounds for decades, yep. Right? Like really, maybe not quite at the 400, but like, 300s and then well at the 400s. And it's just, and to think all those medical conditions, and not only have they all reversed, but you've actually found happiness again and joy for life and appreciation of the beauty in life. And it's an incredible story. Like, how long did it take, would you say? I know that when I first totally no sugar, no flour, I was flat for a long time. And then I lost sort of lost my abstinence. I left my 12-step program and I was out on my own for about, let me think here. about 10 years.
Yeah.
And I was 95% sugar flour free. I mostly ate 3 meals, no snacks, whole foods. I ate very, very well, but I still every now and then would make these exceptions with sugar and flour and processed foods. And I never felt really great after I ate them, and I'd get migraines or just little slumps, right? I would notice that really I did want to fully let it go, but I didn't do it again until I met a guy named Jack who taught me this technique, and I got totally sugar flour free. And I was by then 48 years old. And in my 20s and 30s, and even in my 40s, when I gave up sugar and flour, I bounced back. It took a while, but I bounced back and found that happiness that you're talking about, that energy, that, wow, this is really a great place to be, much, much quicker. I think I spent 6 months flat, almost depressed. And I remember thinking, oh my goodness, I gave up sugar to feel like this, right? And I didn't know how much longer it was going to be before there was a shift in brain chemistry. So tell us a bit about that, your experience in terms of the timeline for you.
The first few months, I found it very difficult, but then I don't know, for something just clicked in my brain saying, okay, if I'm taking away the sugar and the carbs that is triggering my dopamine to go up, I need to replace that with something. So I learned, that's part of where I learned how to play, right? I would go and do something that made me happy. So I would listen to music, I would dance, I would sing, I would paint, I would play the guitar, I would do puzzles, something creative. So when I kind of realized that by doing something with my hands or being creative, and letting that side of my brain start engaging, it was giving me that same feeling. Like I was happy, and I was starting to find this peace. And so I realized, oh, I'm onto something here. This play is really, really important. And the more I learned how to play, the less that little voice in my head was going, oh, you need to eat. Oh, you need to do this. Oh, let's go and have, let's break this abstinence and go and that chocolate looks really good. So let's go and have some of that, or let's hit this fast food and have pizza. I could go, no, I don't need that. I'm just going to go play my guitar, or I'm just going to go for a walk with the dogs in the woods, or hey, I'm just going to spend some time painting. And I didn't, I realized that was critical for me in my recovery, was learning how to play and letting that creative side out and not being so serious. And like, I didn't spend hours thinking about all the things that I was missing out on. I started thinking about all the things that I was going to be able to do and the things that I was going to be able to gain because of not having the sugar and the carbs.
Was there ever a voice in your head that said, you've done so well, like 99% perfect is good enough, like, right? And how do you deal with that little voice in your head that says it's no big deal if you make a single little baby exception here and there every now and then?
Sure, that voice always pops up every now and then. And again, I was like, nope, it's not an option, because I do not want to go back to that prison. That 400-pound prison, don't want to go back there again. I don't want that life. But I also know that the positive thinking helps me. The creative side helps me. The play side helps me keep that stability, and I know that it's not just about the food, it's like a 3-legged stool, and I have to keep those legs all even. I got to work on the spiritual side, I got to work on the mind, and I got to work on the body. And I can't focus on just one, because then I'm going to fall off that stool. So I have a lot of faith, that my higher power is helping me through this, and bringing me to the point where I have a voice and I can voice my needs. After 20 years of being in the same job, I was feeling kind of stagnant there, and there was no growth happening, and there's a lot of chaos that was going on around the job, and I didn't like being in that environment anymore. And because it was triggering, just being in that chaos environment. And I did some work on writing a letter to two people that really hurt me and took a lot of my power away. And those words that they said to me when I was younger haunted me and kept me in my little prison. And I wrote a letter to both of them and expressed what I needed, what I felt. And I took my power back in those letters. And I said, your words no longer have power over me. I'm taking it back. I have a voice, and I am moving forward and living my best life. And I read those letters to my sponsor. I ripped them up and I burned them. The next day, I got a job offer. Somebody was trying to poach me for a better position. And I said, yes, actually, I am very interested in your job offer. Within a week, I had a new position and a new job. And I gave my notice, and I've had nothing but this incredible peace about this decision. And I know it's nothing but my higher power putting this in place. And, me voicing my needs and my desires, and those coming back because I have a voice, and my voice is worthy of being heard.
Incredible. You have a voice, and you know how to ask for what you need and to set boundaries, and you're tuned in. What would spark joy in me? What would be fun? What would be playful or creative or interesting?
Yeah.
Now that I've let sugar not be that main thing. And you also have faith that you live in a universe that's hearing you. Got it, Kim. Got it. We'll work with you, right? And those two pieces are so essential, right? To be able to ask and to trust and have faith that you will receive, because we can block the gifts, can't we, when we don't think. Yeah. Do you want to talk more about that?
Absolutely. I have come to a conclusion that my life isn't going to be working in this IT business that I am in right now. It's just a temporary. What I really would love to be able to do, and in a few years I'm going to work on it and get me there, but I would love to open up this retreat, a place where people can come and learn how to play, to learn how to let that creative side out, and to let that inner child come out and just have fun and learn to enjoy life. So I'm working on getting to that point. And part of me getting to that point is actually writing a book about this play, learning how to play. So the next few years, that's kind of where I'm heading, and I'm going to be doing that, and we'll see.
So that's hitting my dopamine receptors. I'm like, that's so exciting. That's so amazing. I want to come. And you know what? I am struck by the fact that you're like, no, I'm not going to eat. I had my meal. I'm not using food to fill this moment. I'm going to go find something creative and pleasurable and fun to do, playful. But that sort of assumes, and it necessitates that you make the time for it. And I find that my clients struggle the most. It's true for all women, all men probably too. If we overworked and if we're overwhelmed, we overeat. And that job number one often is actually to slow things down enough to carve out some time so we feel time abundant. And then we ask ourselves, what would bring me joy?
Yeah.
What would be fun? What would be playful? What would be nurturing? What would be relaxing?
Absolutely.
And we don't do that piece. It's so underappreciated, isn't it?
I used to work overtime all the time.
Yes.
I had done at one point 45 straight days of work. with
That is
no days off. Like, it's insane what I was putting
insane.
my body
And
through.
it's so typical.
Mhm.
It really is common. It's like a common denominator, I think, for those of us that workaholism and that sugar addiction, like they just dovetail.
Yep.
Right. And what
When I
happens?
started with Jane,
Yeah.
that was the first thing that I did at work. Is like, look, I'm starting this new program and I need to focus on my health. So I will be working my 8-hour day, and that is it. When my time is done at 4:30, I'm out the door because I got things to do.
Kim, that is so essential. I'm so glad you mentioned that. And it's so hard to do because I have found that workaholism not always, but often overlaps with sugar food issues. And we use food, we're driven at work because
Yep.
there's fear, there's insecurity, there's a lot of history there often, like our parents may have been on the workaholic spectrums. So we're really driven, we're working really hard, and we're often very successful. And when we get tired, we turn to the food to override the fatigue or to give us a burst of energy to keep working.
Yeah.
Right. And so when we're no longer using food to drive ourselves way past our point, past the fatigue, past the voice of, I need a break, I need to go home, it's unbearable, isn't it?
Yep.
Right. It's so, workaholism is so sick. It's so painful. And so it's amazing that you did both of those pieces at the same time. You had to, didn't you?
I had to.
Yeah.
I had to. Like, I had to realize, sleep is also critical. Like, if I have to get enough sleep at night, because if I'm tired, then I'm more inclined to go in, to the cravings and to give in to those cravings because I'm tired and I can't fight it. I don't have the energy.
Yes.
So sleep was very critical for me, making sure that I'm only working those 8 hours and that I learn how to self-care, to give myself love. I hated my body. I hated me when I first started this. And every day for the first 6 months, I had to tell my sponsor 3 things that I was grateful for about my body. And I didn't believe any of them, but I still had to say it. And after 6 months, one day I woke up and I looked in the mirror for the first time, like really looked in the mirror at myself. And it's like, I love you. And I meant it. And I knew that something had changed. And it's like, I started looking at my body differently. And it's like, oh, I like the way you're developing. And I like your arms. I like, and I would put clothes on and I would try clothes on and look. And it's like, oh, you look really good in that. And, that's something that's very new. And I still get excited when I go shopping now and I can try clothes on and I come out and, people that are there with me go, oh, you look really great. And it's like, thanks, I do, don't I?
And what's cool is you're doing this before you're at your goal weight, right?
Yep.
I mean, you're still 216 pounds. I don't know how tall you are, but my guess, are you 50-ish pounds still away from a goal weight? Or
About, yeah.
Yeah, right. And you're doing this before you get to some magic number where you're giving yourself permission to love yourself and appreciate your body.
Yep. I even went out and got a bathing suit when I was down in Florida, and I jumped into the springs down there. I haven't been in a bathing suit in 30 years, right? But you know what? I did it. And, I'm just checking those things off the bucket list. And
Yeah.
Out
of the way, excuse me, a woman in joy coming through. Hello.
Yep, exactly.
Woman making up for lost time. Really great. Wonderful. You're going to pack so much life. And you know what? I think it would be really cool for me to do this interview once a year. I want people to see the transformation, like year over year, just appreciate, okay, next year you'll be at your goal weight. Yep. What's that like? Was there any panic when you hit that number? When you're in your light and lovely, it's, most healthy body, that'll be super fun. Is there anything else you want to add before we wrap up today, about tools or tips or words of encouragement that you want to give people who are way behind and trying to catch up to where you are?
I would say, positive thinking, huge connection with people. Don't, seclude yourself. Find somebody, connect with them, even if it's 5 minutes a day. connecting with another human that understands what you're going through is just massive. To know you're not going on this journey alone. There are other people out there that understand your journey and can support you. The positive thinking, and sort of figuring out the whys. Why am I doing what I'm doing?
How do people figure that out, Kim? How did you get some insight into that?
Thankfully, I had Jane, and part of what she was doing was some coaching. So I was able to work with Jane, and she provided me with a lot of tools to actually look at the why. Okay, what are you feeling? How are you feeling? What is your body feeling when you're going through this? And realizing it was okay to feel those things. It was okay for me to feel angry. What was not okay was for me to feed that anger, or for me to carry on feeling angry. It's like, okay, I have to feel the feeling, acknowledge the feeling, and let the feeling go.
Got it. So you discovered your whys in the moments of triggers. So you're thinking about food, you don't want to eat, compulsively eat, binge eat, overeat, eat food between your meals, food you don't need and want. That was your trigger. Oh my gosh, something's going on for me. So then maybe you took some quiet time and you pulled out a journal and you're like, what am I feeling emotionally? What am I thinking mentally?
Yeah.
What am I experiencing in my body? And naming it.
Yeah.
I'm feeling angry. I'm feeling sad, whatever. And then having some insights into what's really going on, what's driving this compulsive behavior.
Yeah.
It was that simple.
It was that simple. Yeah.
Got it. Love it.
Yeah. Acknowledging it, and the shame of it is gone once I've acknowledged it.
Right. Yes. And that underground drive that we don't even, when we stop and look at it and observe it, all of a sudden we've got the space from it. We name it. And we're like, okay, I'm angry. I'm not hungry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or am I thirsty? Have I had enough water today? So, stopping a second and getting in touch with my body.
Yes.
What's my body feeling? What does my body need? Am I low on salt? Am I low on electrolytes? Do I need water? Because I know the food that I eat has enough nutrition to keep me satisfied. So I know it's not that. There's always going to be something else. Like, why am I feeling hungry? What have I done today? Or what's happened around me to cause me to feel hungry? Am I really hungry, or is it just my emotions that are triggering me to?
Right. What are my real needs?
Feel that way. Yeah.
I love it. Kim, any final words?
Don't give up, because the miracle really is just around the corner.
Thank you so much. What a beautiful story. I appreciate you so much. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Thanks for tuning in this week. If you would like more interviews, more information, and more inspiration on how to break up with sugar, go to my YouTube channel, Kick Sugar Coach, or my website, kicksugarcoach.com. See you next week.